your dream job can change.
Yeah.
And it can change for a number of reasons. It can change because your experience of it once you get into it can shift from your perception of what you thought it would be. Or it can change because what you want and what you need from your work as you grow and change as a person and you get more experience, that can also change. And what is a dream at one point in life can be very, very different. And you can need very different things.
Hello and welcome, Caroline and Mike, to the People First podcast, the Young Careers podcast. I'm really excited about today's episode. And today we're going to be discussing what it means to have an impact-driven career and, more importantly, how to find one. For our listeners, I'm joined by Career Coach Caroline Hickey and Mike Bernhardt, Business Centre Manager at Brook Street Social Care. Welcome to the podcast, Mike and Caroline.
Thank you for having us.
So, first of all, can you please tell me and our listeners a bit about yourself quickly? I'm going to come to you, Caroline, first, if that's okay.
Sure. So my name is Caroline. I'm a career coach and I specialise in helping people in their 20s and 30s to work out what they want to do with their careers, essentially, in an absolute nutshell.
That was great. And Mike?
Mike Bernhardt, work for Brook Street, but I work in the social care department, so we cover the whole spectrum. So literally we put people out to work to support vulnerable people or looking after people within regulated settings, and that could be anyone from the age of 18 years old till if people are able to work.
Question for you both that we asked all our guests is, what was your first ever job? And I don't mean, a national insurance. I want to know about the paper rounds and things like that. What was your first ever job?
First ever job, I'm about 14. I grew up in very rural Devon, so I basically worked at a literary festival that was happening at a local hall. Next door neighbour persuaded us that we needed to get a bit of summer money. The job was 8 hours, sit in the car park, high-vis jacket, tell people where to park their cars, got paid about 20 quid a day, free ice cream, free lunch, which at 14 was
amazing. Yeah, love that.
Fast forward a few years, on the CV, we're like, shit, you need to start putting some work experience in. So that job for both me and my brother who did the job became head of outdoor security for this literary festival.
A head of title at 14
Absolutely.
Is very, very, very impressive.
Start you need to go on. But yeah, it's all been downhill from there, really.
I don't think so. And what about yourself, Mike?
I loved my first job. I don't know if you guys are aware of Trocadero up in the city, the big building.
Yeah.
And I worked for Sega World.
Great.
So, I don't know if you remember those game
consoles, yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically young, 16 years old, got my first job in charge of operating the rides for tourists.
Love that.
So after work, I could go on every ride I wanted to.
That's the dream.
That was a dream job.
Yeah. And that actually brings me on nicely to one of our points. So many of us grow up with the idea of having a dream job, but it doesn't always happen. Is the idea, would you say, of having a dream job inspiring, or is that actually hindering?
Yeah, a dream job could be inspiring. A dream job at the same time could be a hinder to you as well. So you just got to weigh the pros and cons. The fact that you think you've got a job and you really like it, i.e. my first job, at that age, I liked it. Playing games, going on a ride for free, playing game consoles for free. That was really good. At that point, at my age, I thought it was good. But you need to look at your long-term goals. Mm-hmm. Does it align with it? Did I want to be working probably in my mid-20s, working every Sunday morning or Saturday morning? Do I want to stay at work till 10 o'clock? No, I think it's 12 o'clock then. Is that what you wanted to do? So then work-life balance comes into play.
Yeah.
In your mid-20s, you probably want to go to the pub with your mates. Mike, where are you? I'm at work. What time are you coming back? We finish at 12. You'll probably be home at 1.
Yeah.
At that point in time or in life, you think you've got a really good job, but in the long run, is that what you really want to do for the rest of your life?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that you've addressed. I didn't share at the start, but my first job was in Topshop. At 16, working in Topshop, that was the coolest thing ever, and I come from quite a deprived community in Northern Ireland where there is heavy unemployment and most people leave school to go into organised crime, for lack of better terms. So all throughout uni, I had this glamorous idea that I wanted to work in fashion. That was it. You know, I was going to be a designer. I was going to be in Paris, and I was going to do everything. And I landed what I thought was my dream job in a menswear business in Belfast. And what I found quite quickly was that idea of that dream was taken advantage of, maybe. You know, we were maybe asked to do things that were not always right, or probably sometimes in the grey area of legal. And was I using my master's degree that I had worked hard and paid hard for to do things like this, you know? So do you think that, I know that to me was a hindrance. It knocked me back, it knocked my confidence down and those sorts of things. I can look back on that now positively, but on that idea of it being a hindrance, do you have anything to add, Caroline, with your work?
Yeah, I think it's something that comes up in, you know, my work with particularly kind of young professionals at the start of their career, where if they have been able to, when we've been, you know, yay high, ask the question of, so what do you want to be when they, you know, when you grow up and you have something that you go, that's my dream job, you get it, and then you go, oh, this isn't quite right, this isn't it. At that point, it can be a real hindrance because it can really knock you, as you said there, it can really knock your confidence. It can be very destabilizing, very unmooring to go, well, this is the thing. You know, I thought it was going to be the thing. This is the thing I've worked really hard for. Why is it not, you know, everything that I hoped it would be? And it's a really interesting thing kind of around what you were saying there, Mike, about how your dream job can change.
Yeah.
And it can change for a number of reasons. It can change because your experience of it once you get into it can shift from your perception of what you thought it would be. Or it can change, as in your example, of because what you want and what you need from your work as you grow and change as a person and you get more experience, that can also change. And what is a dream at one point in life can be very, very different. And you can need very different things. And so it can be brilliant because I think a dream job and having something that you aspire to, great, go for it. But if it is something that then doesn't work in the way that you want to, depends on how you handle that as to whether that's a hindrance. I think if it knocks you down and then you don't know how and you don't have the tools to move forward from that and find the next dream, the next chapter, then it's really, really hard. And I mean, to be honest, that's a lot of what I do in my work, is being that person to help them work out that bit, because it's a lot. It's a lot to navigate.
I was reading something yesterday, and within the workforce of the UK, you've got, I think, anywhere between 20 to 40% of the workforce who seem to think they are in a dream job.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a really, really good statistic. Was that, how many percent did you say?
Anything between 20 to 40%. So they can't put their finger on it to say it's 25.
Yeah.
So, because coming back to Caroline's point, it changes. So you've probably started a job, you really like it, and exactly what Caroline said, this is what I want to do, but you get into it and you realize, okay. Even coming to your point, it's not exactly what I thought it was.
No.
So probably if those figures were taken at the start of you having that job, yeah, this is my dream job, a year down the line, I don't think so.
I completely agree with what you said. And I think something hopefully that we'll touch upon later is having that sort of, you know, a bit of a being a young and dreamer and those sorts of things. I think that can transfer into your career, and this episode is about finding your why. But I think for me, looking back to that like 16, 17-year-old that just really wanted to work in this glamorous industry of fashion, I think it was because I was from somewhere that was a bit dull and grey. I just wanted more and to show people more and new things, you know. And we work in the recruitment industry. I found that, you know, whenever I worked in Brook Street specifically, I was helping people get off universal credit. I was helping people get into their first jobs. I was helping people get jobs that maybe had been in unemployment for a while. And that had became a bit of a dream, you know. So that's helping people in the industry that we work in and getting people out to work. I find that gave me more inspiration than just want to make dresses and things like that, you know. And again, you know, coming onto it, I think the industry that we're in as well, especially the industry you're in, Mike, I think it's quite easy to translate this passion and those dreams and that idea of helping people into what we do, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And there's something really interesting in that, right, of that work is really meaningful. You know, the people that you put in place there, they can make such a meaningful impact to people's lives. But that, and they can find real kind of value for that. And you can go, yeah, that is that's a dream job. I get to do something that really helps people. But that's not to say that dream job isn't without its challenges. That's an incredibly challenging environment. And I think that's when we talk about dream jobs, one of the nuances that often gets forgotten is that it can be a dream job. It can be something that you find incredibly meaningful. Doesn't mean it's not going to be challenging. Doesn't mean there's not going to be parts of it that you're I
can give you a good example. There's a lady that works for me as a consultant who went to university and did criminology and whatever it comes with. But she wanted to work in a young offenders institution just to help young people. That was the job she wanted to do. That was the job she went to university to study. Then she eventually got a job to work in such an institution, and she quit within 6 months because she realized that, and when I interviewed her, and I took a liking to her because all that she was trying to say was she wants to help people. She wants to help people. What she forgot was she thought she was going to work into a place and I want to help you, and you're going to play ball. Wow. You're going to embrace it. She didn't know the challenges it came with. And you know what? She's gone all that studies and everything. Dream job to start with. She now works in recruitment. In a way, she's saying, you know what? I'm not the one doing it now on the front line, but I am putting people forward to do that work. So she's feeding into it. But right from the beginning, she wanted to be on the front line.
100%. I that's a really good example to bring up in this situation because in my job, I consider myself to be quite caring. I consider myself to be very empathetic, but I consider myself to be quite patient. But that, if I was in a setting like a secure centre, I would struggle to feel that way and to show those values for people that I did not directly care for or care about, like a family or a friend or a colleague that I knew, So I definitely couldn't go into one of those, even though I think that I have those traits. But yeah, do you know what I mean? Your example of your team member who has the best intentions of wanting to do meaningful work and has found that in a different way that what they realised. And just to circle back on a question for the room, when we say in like meaningful work or value-driven work or impactful work, what does that mean to you both in a nutshell?
I think it depends because I think if you like the work that I do on a personal level, I find incredibly meaningful. I think that everything I do every day is basically to help kind of young professionals feel in control of their careers. It's something that I feel deeply passionate about, and that for me is incredibly meaningful. But what meaningful means for everybody is very, very different. I asked that almost that exact question of a client the other day, and he said to me, "Oh, well, actually, I don't think." And if you think of it a bit like a scale, you've got one end, which is real kind of service delivery, frontline, hand in glove, kind of what your teams do. Really delivering with people, with them on the ground. There's then sort of a sliding scale up to what you guys do, which is the work that you do holistically has a really positive effect on lots and lots of people in their lives. But are you on the front line with it? No, not necessarily. And he went, I still don't even think I need to do that. And I said, okay, well, what would be meaningful work for you? And he said, I really, really want to work for Yorkshire Tea. And I was like, right, what? And he was like, well, I'll explain why. I was like, okay. He goes, because he trained as an accountant and was like, I don't think that, as an accountant, I'm going to be able to retrain to do something that is as hard hitting as being a frontline kind of service type worker role for people who are vulnerable. I'd love to do that. But my way of doing it is that I think everyone loves tea.
Yeah.
Tea makes everything better. And he said it with total sincerity. He was like, it has the power to make a real difference in people's days. And if I think that I can be part of that, even in a really small way, that is really meaningful. And it was a really enlightening moment to me because I think when we talk about why and we talk about meaning, we often assume kind of the other end of that scale. But actually, it's really about what you really feel is valuable.
That's meaningful to you.
Well, who decides what is meaningful? Where is that scale? I don't know if there is one, I think it is a very personal thing, and to switch everything around a bit. What would you both say your why is in your job or what you do? I know we've touched on it a tiny little bit, but what makes you feel like that you both are doing meaningful work?
Well, so in terms of Me, for example, I work in social care. I work with a team. We've got loads of organizations and services. What I consider meaningful is making sure that we are actually staffing these vulnerable services with the right candidate. And all what ticks my boat or makes me happy at the end of the day as a client actually phoning through to any of the consultants, any good feedback that comes back to us to say that, that chap or that lady you sent over was really good, engaged, worked with our most difficult residents, but you know what? They got on really well, and we really want them to come back over here if we can have them working. That is very meaningful to me. What Caroline said, there's two spectrums to it, the higher end or the lower end. Actually, it depends on the individual and what they find meaningful. So most of the time, big organizations or some people might think it's the output, it's the profit, it's that meaningful. No, it's the little things that people do to contribute. It's the wrongs. And these guys are normally, if you are impact driven, you're normally seen as a general reactor. We don't need to tell you what to do. If Jordan is not well and you've spotted that, he's not of himself this morning, it's not a written rule in our company's policy, but you might turn around and go, I'm going to make a cup of tea. Do you want to come over? Is everything all right with you? Check with him. I don't have a good sleep. I've got a headache. Blah. I've got some painkillers. Do you want to have it? The little things. And by 12 o'clock, if it's up firing, okay, that is meaningful to you. You've made a change. These little things in the long run makes everyone happy, makes everyone fires. It's not, Jordan, you're meant to do this, that. It's not been achieved. Today has not been a good day. No, it's the little things that general reactors do. They spot things which are wrong, they focus on it, and they try and turn it right.
Yeah, I love that. What about yourself?
I think to try and explain my why, I'll give you a bit of context as to how I got here, because I didn't always do this. This wasn't my job. Prior to this, I used to work in creative agencies, so working kind of in client services, on advertising campaigns and things like that. I basically got into that post-uni, went, oh God, I need to get a job post-uni. All I wanted to do was move to London, got the job. Realised it wasn't right, but stuck at it because I felt like, well, I've done the thing, I've got the job, I've done the thing I wanted to do, did it, stayed in it, and about nine odd years in, I'm going, this really isn't the right thing for me. And in that moment, I went, I don't want to do this until, I'm 65 is the average retirement age going up. I don't want to do it for that long. And I sat there and was like, okay, I need to change something. Couldn't find anyone really to help me do it. I met people who were coaches, but they were all looking at kind of exec, C-suite, higher level work than where I was at the bottom of my career, having a massive panic going, this is not it, but I don't know what it is. And that going through that experience was really scary, because I'm sitting there going, I'm in a really foundational point of my life, making what feels like a massive decision, and I can't find anyone to help me doing that. And so, I went through quite a lot of ups and downs, highs and lows, tried lots of different things, tested it out, and eventually landed here because I went, if other people are having this problem, it's not right that they have to go through it on their own when they are setting themselves up for what they're going to do for a long time in their life. And so when it comes to kind of my why, what gets me up in the morning is going, I just want to make sure that no one ever has to feel how I felt in that moment. Yeah. And, it doesn't matter to me what decisions they make with their careers. What I want them to have the tools to feel like they can make them, to feel like they're in control of that choice, to feel like it's the decision that they want to make, whether they think that, this is going to be the best thing for now or the best thing for a long time, but it's the decision that they make versus anything that they feel stuck in, anything they think their parents want them to do, and things that, financially they have to do. It's making sure they make that decision. And for me, if I can do that for people every day and just create the space for people to work that out, that is incredibly meaningful to me.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too. I think for me, I love having a cool job, I don't know what the idea of cool is, but I really like that. I love when people say like, wow, I love what you do, I think I left uni, I was one of the people, probably, Mike, you can maybe attest to this, that actually sort of wanted to work in recruitment. I like that idea of like people bettering themselves and wanting to do more. And I've spoken about it before in the podcast, but I met a MD of a recruitment business in Belfast that really made me feel seen. And I thought, if I can do that for other people, I would really love that. So for me, I took a lot of pride in, I looked after, 3 of the biggest and oldest agencies in the UK at 27. That was something that really helped me sleep well at night, knowing all the work that you do and they do in Brook Street and across Manpower. But, I do feel like a sense of respect whenever people tell me that they love what I do. Now I work for Jaguar Land Rover, one of the sexiest brands in the world, which is I'm really, really grateful for. But I think my mind broadened a little bit quite recently when I realized that I was, especially doing things like this, right? I get to meet people and work with people that are really senior in our business, doing real things outside of the business. And I think that's inspiring. And if I can take one nugget of information from each of these people, we could call it loads of names of absolute legends in our business. And if I can grab a little bit of that, I think that's what I think is cool now, So I know that's quite maybe a bit of a juvenile way of thinking something's cool or whatever, but it's I sort of want that bit of status, that bit of stature, and I think if I could looking towards later in my career, I would love to have my own recruitment agency or an ad agency or something like that, and if I could incubate other talent or like younger people the way I have been supported, I think that's what my why will be and will come to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but if you look at it on a whole, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
You are happy at what you do.
Yeah.
That is what makes you happy. The chap who wants to work for Yorkshire Tea, if he walks past a train station and he sees people ordering teas and it happens to be a Yorkshire tea bag, he would just give himself a tap on the shoulder.
Yeah.
Look at me. Look at the work I do. Look at that man benefiting of it. And look how happy he is having a cup of tea.
Yeah.
That is what it is. What makes people happy? What makes people recognize? What makes people feel that they're actually contributing to society and being valued?
100%. And I think this is why your job is so pivotal in what you do, is because sometimes I think people struggle to find that within themselves of what that thing is. Or I'm sure we all have friends that we're trying to think, you'd be good at this if you were looking for a new job, or have you ever thought about this and things like that. All it takes is someone to see something in you that you can sort of accelerate at, and sometimes it takes someone else to be in the room, just like your team member who did criminology and wanted to be a service user, or the people you work with. And it leads me on to my next question, and it's something I nosily want to know, is what would be the typical profile of someone that you work with that needs help in their career? What do they... Do you know what I'm trying to say? Do they fit into a box? Do they not? What would that typical profile of your clients work with, I guess?
Yeah, totally. I mean, typical client is normally late 20s, early 30s, been in the career for between 5 and 10 years and gone, either this was never right for me, but I did it because I needed to, and now I've looked up and gone, ooh, okay. And either they go, okay, I just need to, I don't want to do anything drastic with it. I just want to get better at my job. Yeah. I want to find a way to make my work for me and make it work harder. Or they go, oh, this really isn't it, but I don't really know what to do with that. And being able to navigate around that, what often happens in those conversations is, because I think we live in a world where kind of life is very binary. We think we oftentimes have to do something very extreme. And lots of them go, I need to quit it all. I need to quit it all. I need to
Caroline, I'm shaving my head often, let me tell you, it's always something extreme, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's that thing of going, I have to change everything. I always describe it, which is, it's a little bit that, our brains are a little bit like a seesaw. If we're like this and we feel a level of discomfort, we want to do the kind of absolute opposite to get us just back to equilibrium in the middle. And so they often come into this space going, something needs to change. But because no one's ever taught them how to navigate any of that stuff, that notion of going, something needs to change, but I don't know what it is totally paralyzing. And so oftentimes they get on a call with me, or they get in a room with me and go, oh, I don't know what it is. And this sort of, for want of a better phrase, word vomit of all these emotions of going, here's everything I've thought about for weeks and I don't know what to, and it all just arrives in the space. But until you do that, you don't really know what to do with it, because it all stays up here because no one talks about it.
100%. And changes, it has to be always drastic, isn't it? That's the first thing you think of. I need to completely do something different. But part of the time it's maybe just making a little tweak in one corner of your life that will benefit the rest of it,
Totally. Because also, if you chose this career at 16, 18, 21, and you are now sitting there at 30, 31, 32, you're a very, very different person, or at least I know that I am.
100%.
And it's so unfair, I think. This is just my own opinion, but I think it's so unfair that we hold ourselves of going, well, why didn't I get it right the first time? And we think that we did something wrong, and we think that it's a mistake, and it's not. You just grew.
That's where people like you come in to help out and talk people through what they need to do, or support them, help them come to their decisions. And I believe they realize that, you know what, I don't have to quit what I'm doing. I need to adjust myself right to get this done. I've inherited, as you know, teams that I've never worked with. And I've got feedback. Normally, if I'm inheriting a team, the outgoing manager or the person moved on will give me a rundown of this. And I'm like, okay, I take it, but that's not what I'm basing it because I like a clean slate.
You need to see it with your own eyes.
I need to see it with my own eyes. And sometimes, it's true. Sometimes it's not true. But I've always homed in on the 1% strength that you've got. Yeah. Not the 99% weakness, because we'll be sat here.
Great analogy.
Yeah. Having a negative conversation every day.
Sure.
Which in turn is just going to make you demotivated and not happy. You don't want to come to work. But what is this person good at doing? And we do a lot in recruitment, as you know. And you would definitely find out they might not be a good admin, but they can talk on the phone. They find conversations easily. They can sell. They haven't got a problem going out, meeting clients. Right. Why don't we get you to do more of it?
Yeah.
So you bring us business.
You play to your strengths. Yeah, 100%.
Get them to do paperwork. It's taking them days and days and days. That is not your strength. That's why they don't like the job. Right. You are good at paperwork. You don't mind getting your head down and getting on with it. So he would do more of what you do in terms of the sales or speaking to clients or doing meetings, getting feedback, whether we're providing a good service. He's a people's person. He likes to talk. That's what he wants to do. All of a sudden, you could see that blink in their eyes that, you know what, they have turned a corner and they're enjoying it. I haven't made a decision for them, but I've just observed them and I can tell that they're natural to picking up a phone. They're natural to persuade someone, I want to come and see you and see what value I can add to you. And these are the kind of profiles that you inherit, but then between you and individuals, you need to tweak it a bit like what you're doing to make sure it works. There's no point in me drumming on and on and on about Jordan. Your admin is bad. Your admin is bad.
Which it is. My manager will attest to. Yeah.
There's no point because that's where people, if you're not careful, break down. I'm not happy at work. I don't know what to do. But you go into any kind of work you do, there would be different parts of the job, that you need to do. But some people have got strengths here, some people have got that. And as a leader in my team, I make sure that I'm actually utilizing everyone's strengths to the fullest. That is what I do.
Yeah.
And that's what you just said. As a leader, that's very important to me as someone who's early in my career because I respond well to people recognizing something or telling me that I'm good at something or, someone else pointing out a strength maybe that I didn't realize, which again, really important in the work you do. Because some people need that mirror held to them sometimes, to look at themselves and to reflect and think about what actually is driving me forward, Am I getting bogged down? Do I dread coming to work every day because I've to submit 15 invoices, whereas I could run out the door if I know I'm going to be prospecting candidates and clients and things like that, So.
But I would always say I think it takes like being a leader is exactly the right word. It takes proper leadership to be able to create an environment like the one that you're fostering there, which is amazing, to be able to bring out those strengths in different people. Because I would say my job shouldn't need to exist. I shouldn't need to do what I do if we were supporting our young professionals properly. And it's because it takes real courage to sit there and go, actually, right, I do need to create different kind of approaches for different people to pull out their strengths and not just go, here is my box, here is what I'd love them all to do. If they all did this, it would run really smoothly.
Yeah.
But you're dealing with people. People are different. We all bring different things to the table. But it takes real courage and leadership to create environments like it sounds like you do in your teams to be able to really bring out the best in that. And in turn, I'm sure you've seen it, the organisation then benefits from that. But as you say, someone has to do that for you, particularly when you're young in your career. You've not been in the working world for very long. You've not got a lot to base it on. You need those figures.
You need the support
in that
of
space.
someone. Yeah, you need Some other guys need the support of someone. Like you said, that's a sexy job. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
But you're landing there and you're thinking, oh my God, you just saw the glamour part of it. You don't know what goes on.
What goes actually in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's loads of really good real world examples of what you've just touched on, having that tunnel vision and coming out of school. You know, if I was 28, 29 and I had worked in PricewaterhouseCoopers or EY since I was 18 and I'd done all the traveling and things like that, you are going to get tired of that lifestyle sometimes, of course, and people do. If you were a midwife and you went through all that training, all that education, and you've been on the floor and you've done all that, and you get to a point where you just think this isn't for me anymore, you know, for those two profiles, what do you think would be the first step that they should take? You know, I've done this, I'm ready for a change.
Yeah, no, what we do is we particularly, as you say, you know, midwife nursing teachers are people I see a lot.
Yeah.
So people who have got a very specific trade skill, crafted skill, that they then go, oh God, I've invested a lot into this and now I've done it in a professional setting for a long time. What we do firstly is go, actually, let's break down all the things you actually do in your job, because there will be so much that you do that you don't realize that you do, you know, and those are really transferable skills. Then what we do is think about how big this change has to be. You know, is it a small change? So if you take kind of midwifery, nursing, things like that, is it healthcare but in a different way? Can we use these and put them in a different setting? That's kind of the smallest version. Is it then the next kind of jump into something that feels more adjacent? Or is it going and doing something totally different? And depending on how your kind of appetite for change is, depending on kind of how much risk tolerance you've got, and also then which of those skills you want to lean on, you can then start to adjust to go, actually, I know this isn't right, but how big of a step do I need to take? But it starts always, I would say, with giving yourself more credit for all the things you bring to the table, because there's so much that everyone does in their work that is totally autopiloted. We just don't give ourselves the space to go, actually, I am really good at that.
No, but it is true. For example, a typical example is when we get a CV and someone has worked somewhere for 7 years, but then working at this place for 7 years, they've only got 3 lines to describe what they did. And I'm like, okay, you haven't sold yourself. But then you speak to them and they've not had to write a CV because they've always got jobs, i.e. a nurse would always get a job if they wanted to work as a nurse. So you pull them in and like, can you walk me through what you do in a day when I go to the ward? All of a sudden, they're telling you everything that they haven't put on there. Oh, right, okay. There's loads of skills here. If you don't want to work as a nurse, you write reports, you're a midwife, you can work in a mothers and baby unit. You know, you could do that. And every client or every organization of that nature would rush and take you. You are a qualified nurse, a midwife, and you write good reports. You can nudge a parent. You can spot what's going wrong with a child, a baby especially. You know, you say that to them. You could be a supervised contact worker. You're sitting there observing parents whose children have been taken into court, into foster care, and write reports to be taken to court. There's a whole lot you could do. But they send you a CV and they've literally haven't said anything about it. Or they've put there, I work in A&E. Well, what do you do in A&E?
Yeah. And it goes back to that. You sometimes just need someone to draw that out of you and help you see those things, you know. Question to the room. What advice would you give someone who still thinks that they're chasing their dream job or isn't putting their true passion into their work?
Yeah, and it's something that comes up all the time, right? And the thing I always think is, you have to be very kind to yourself, because ultimately we've all got some real life things that we've got to be looking after. And so if you've got a thing that you're like, I do this, but God, I'd love to be doing that. The first thing I always say is that it doesn't have to be either or. Okay, you don't either have to be doing the job that you do now or doing your dream job. For me, to get it to kind of start in that process and to feel a bit freer with it is to start to think about how can you bring a little bit of the thing that you want to do in. Either in kind of the work you do, can you start to bring that element into some part of it? So, you know, if you really wanted to have a podcast, how do you have your own version of this? You know, how do you send that in as an initiative? Or do you do it outside of work? Is it something that you start to bring in to test, to go, is this something that I really want to?
Yeah, like volunteering or some sort of hobby or something like that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think we have, again, to this point around kind of there being quite a binary view of either going, I'm chasing my dream or I'm not. Not true. You can do what you need to do to put, you know, food on the table, pay your bills, you know, live the life that you need to live. but you can also start to supplement things in that bring you closer to your dream every day. And if you get to a point where you can make that transition over and it becomes a thing you do full time, amazing. But if not, then allowing yourself to have a bit of a balance just offers you a little bit more space, I would say.
So you're talking about smooth transition, baby steps. So I think I can relate to that example with someone that works for me who does loads of charity work for homeless people on the side. And I think we support him as a company. He sends an email out around the Christmas time asking for used clothes that you don't need. And even the guys in the office will bring a black bin bag full of clothes, baby clothes, women clothes, male clothes. And he takes and goes around. He knows a few places and that's his passion. Yeah. That's what he wants to do. He feels he wants to do something. Yeah. And even sometimes we raise a bit of money and he gets food vouchers and stuff like that to do. But that's something that he does around the Christmas time during the winter time, which is the bad times for rough sleepers.
Bad times,
But he would do that, but we in turn would support as much as we can. And he's bringing that into work because he does it in his own time, but he would send an email around or create a group chat and just push a message out and whoever wants to support. So he's getting some sense of fulfillment.
It's matching up either sides. I've been really lucky, and I know you probably can maybe attest this from working in that agency, but I think in marketing or in advertising, you tend to be able to take a lot of responsibility for charity and events and partnerships and things like that. And not so much in my role now, but whenever I was in a smaller agency, I would love to always spotlight smaller causes that were period poverty, for example, is a big thing now. You know, having access to sanitary products and things. I as a corporate recruitment agency, probably typically wouldn't have supported one of those charities, but I iron-fisted that in, you know. It's just one of those things that I think you can go to bed at night knowing that you've contributed to a wider cause, even if you're sitting behind a desk or you're on Outlook or you're on MS Teams, you know? It's those things. Last point, which I'm going to ask, what if our why changes? Does our why change?
Yeah, I think so. Over a period of time, I think I'd go back to the first job I had. I really loved it. At my age, working in Trocadero was the best thing to do. But then my long-term goals, you know, lack of exploration. Yeah. Okay, what options have I got available? I wanted a 9-to-5 job, a Monday to Friday. I wanted the weekends to myself. I want to play football with my mates. I want to go to the pub on a Sunday to watch a football game.
Which is normal human wants and desires. So it is, you know, normal things.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, my why is changing.
Yeah.
As an agent, I've got more responsibilities. You know, I want more time to myself. When I was young, I never bothered about good work and life balance. I could go to work, I could go out, come home, change into my uniform, off I've gone. These days, I like to have a bit of sleep, keep rest before I go to work. I need to work in an environment where I can have my own time.
Yeah. And it has to change, you know. It can change. Your career is a lifelong project. Your why can change with that as you do.
I love that. Can you share a key takeaway for our listeners who want to find their why?
Give yourself the space to get to know yourself. And that sounds ridiculous, but it means that it's actually spending time with you. So not scrolling, not the time that you're at work, giving yourself the actual space to get to know who you are. And that means kind of thinking about who are the people I surround myself with? You know, what are the things I really like? What are the things in my life that make me feel good? Because I think it's very hard to find your why until you understand what are the things you enjoy about the life that you want to live, because then you can shape your work to work in alignment with that.
I loved this episode. Really loved it. I think the conversation we had was really organic, and I've thought about things in my own life. I'm sure you two have as well. So just the last point, where can our listeners follow you?
Yes, you can follow me online on Instagram and TikTok at whathappensnow.co, which is the name of my careers consultancy, which is called What Happens Now Coaching. And I am Caroline Hickey on LinkedIn if you want to find me there.
Great. I know we can find you on LinkedIn, Mike, but for the Brook Street teams, I would recommend connecting with this legend in the recruitment game and just finding out about the softer things that come with the job rather than just the on the phones and the admin and things like that. So that's the end of today's episode. Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you so much, Caroline, for joining me today.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, if you're looking at a new role, as always, why not check out Brook Street online? There may just be a dream job waiting there for you. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend or follow us wherever you listen to your podcast. Thank you, and I'll see you later.